Hello world, I am James Pritz. Welcome to StackFoo. Today I am focusing on dependency injection with Microsoft's Unity framework. There are, I guess, multiple ways to skin a cat. You could use other DI containers, DI frameworks. I chose Microsoft Unity because at the time I was doing the research, I needed a container that would work in a medium trust environment, and none of the other guys did. So I stayed with Unity framework. I really haven't had any problems with it. It's worked well for our needs. Also, I've decided to stop waiting for my environment to be free of ambient noise. So I'm sure the din of my family, my dogs, my cats, my kids, my wife, my heater, anything else that can make noise will find their way into this, and I won't apologize. So, in the spirit of StackFoo, I'm trying to keep things, built on top of each other. I already have my last project checked into GitHub, which is the IL merge branch, where I demonstrate how to use IL merge. So I'm going to go ahead and build on top of that. I've cleaned my environment so that I can demonstrate that I can pull things off and compile without any trouble. So you should be able to pull this version and compile it as well. I'm going to go ahead and get the project is called .NET Stack. It's under the StackFoo GitHub user. I'll go ahead and pull that. And I recently updated with the NuGet branch to make sure that NuGet was integrated properly. So I'll go ahead and get that branch. I think that's it. Sweet. So I should be able to open that right up without any problems. And compile without any problems. I'll start with our library because that's where I'll demonstrate most of it. And I should just be able to rebuild. My environment was clean, so that should be the same experience for you. Now, in order to demonstrate Unity, I am going to go ahead and add Unity references to the projects I need. I should be clear, there are multiple ways to do Unity as well. I'm choosing a very simple path. I'm going to use design time configuration using configuration files. I actually personally like that approach because it's a little bit more verbose and explicit as to what your mappings are, as opposed to doing it at runtime. Additionally, if you're building a Windows Phone application, you can't use runtime. I'm sorry, you can't use runtime anyway. Oh, no, I'm sorry. If you're building a Windows Phone application, you can't use design time. So you would have to use runtime. You would have to do it in code. But because I'm not doing a Windows Phone application, I'm staying with configuration files. Doing it in code is pretty simple. So I'm not actually at the testing stage of StackFoo yet, so I'm going to go ahead and add a sandbox. Just a console application. And I'm going to add the Unity references to the IMPL library, which is what everything is compiled into, and to Sandbox, of course. So I'll just grab the latest version. And I'll put it in IMPL as well. Okay, now in order to demonstrate, I have to do a number of things. I have to create some classes that represent or property injection. I won't do constructor injection. We generally use property injection anyway. I'll have to add the configuration elements, and I'll have to wire up some code to test to see if it's all working. So I'll start by creating the classes that I'll use to test with. And I started with this user concept, so I'll stay on that. It's real world. It's not exactly how we implement things, but it's close enough to get the concept. A little bit more real than foo. So I'll go ahead and create a new, I guess I'll create a service. Keep the namespace consistent. And I'll add two services. One to represent getting user information, and one to represent security type stuff like login. Since we already have an iUser, I will just create a method to get the user, maybe by token. There will probably be one with an ID as well, but I don't need to do that here. And for security, I'll do just a test credentials. I'll do that again. Security. And obviously we would do things a little bit more secure than this, but conceptually this kind of represents what I'm trying to demonstrate. These will merge into the impl library, so I'll go ahead and create the concrete implementations of those. I'm not going to get anything from the database, so I'll just return dummy instances for this demonstration. Need a user service, and I need a security service. That actually can be internal, since nothing outside of this library will be allowed to instantiate it directly. They have to do it through DI. Like I said, I'll just go ahead and return a dummy user regardless. This breaks all the rules of testing, but this is just to demonstrate Unity. And just since I'm doing a console application, I'll go ahead and write something out to the console, and it's clearly also not a good pattern. Just to show that something's happening. So in security service, I am going to wire up a dependency to the user service just to demonstrate the build-up. I'll add Microsoft Unity. I'll add my dependency. Unity will use that attribute to determine which dependencies it needs to build. So I should not have to instantiate that myself. Unity should do it for me as long as I follow protocol. And I'll go ahead and just, I don't really have to do anything here. I can just user test equals this dot user service get user, and it doesn't matter what it is. And return true. That should be that. Alright, so the next thing I have to do is I have to wire up the actual project so that it can load Unity and run the configuration and test it. So I use a sandbox for that, and I have to add a reference to my impl library. I can't do a project reference because I am merging all of my dependencies into a new DLL, so I have to do a concrete reference. Let me make sure it builds. Gotta love IL merge. In order to, because I added a new reference and I exclude any third-party references from my IL merge dependent or my IL merge output, I have to tell IL merge to exclude the new Unity DLLs. So I have to unload the project and edit. Down here I'm defining each of the packages I wanted to exclude, and I'll be damned if I remember what the name of that DLL is, or directory is. Unity Now, unfortunately, this means that every time you upgrade Unity, you also have to upgrade your project. Actually, I think that's actually fortunate because that forces coders to recognize what their dependencies are and not to just ignore changes. At 45, same convention. If I reload, now it should build. What'd I miss? Oh, I know what I missed. New references I don't copy local. That's part of the way I'm using IO merge. And if I'm right, that should do the trick. Yep. Okay. For a tutorial on that, you can go back to my IO merge StackFoo demonstration. That kind of explains what all that was. I'm not going to go into that here. So go back to my program. It's pretty basic. I'll add Unity again. This would all be wrapped up into some sort of helper, but for this demonstration I'll do everything brute force. So the first thing I have to do is I have to configure Unity. So I have to add some configuration stuff. Now I don't actually put my Unity configuration directly in my app config. I put it in a separate file and reference that file. I think that's cleaner. So I'll go ahead and add a new configuration file. Call it Unity. And I should have a nice pre-wrapped basic stuff you need. You need an assembly, the name of the assembly that you're referencing. So you see the name is StackFoo impl.dll. And I'll go ahead and register my classes. Class view, it's easier that way. So I'm creating aliases as shortcuts that I don't have to retype the full assembly name every time I reference it. user service. And the type that it actually maps to, or that oh, wrong spot. And one for the security service. Like I said, all you're really doing here is creating a shorter name to reference this fully typed assembly or class name. Copy. Oh, did the wrong one again. StackFoo. That's funny. And I'm going to go ahead and register them, and this is what tells Unity to map that interface to the concrete implementation. Since everything's in the same assembly and the same namespace structure, I can go ahead and just do that. And I'm going to go ahead and make these singletons. So you're essentially telling Unity not to create a new instance every time I ask for one. Instead, it's going to create one, a static, and return that same one every single time. These classes don't have any state, so that shouldn't be any problem. And I'll register security service. That's it for my Unity file, and now I'll go ahead and reference that in my app config. And that should be that. Alright, so first thing I have to do is I have to load Unity, so and I'm going to need configuration, so grab that guy. What did I miss? Oh. That pulls the Unity configuration section out of the app config, which then relays to the Unity config and should tell Unity how to wire everything up. Section.configure, pass in my container, and the name of my configuration section, which was core, I believe. Yep. Just to test to make sure everything runs. Oh, I forgot to add my reference. As you can see, I've done this before. Like, I have to reference the actual output DLL instead of the project. So I should be able to build that, and I should be able to run it without any errors. There we go. So now, rather than create a dependency here, I'll just go ahead and resolve it. I can say security service equals container.resolve security service console.write line service dot test credentials doesn't matter I should get an output of true, and then the trace message I put in the user facade. As you can see, I didn't actually fit or construct anything, any concrete instances. Unity should be doing all the work for me. Cross fingers, there you go. Okay, so I'm going to stop there. There is a web project, and there's a couple tricks to wiring up a web project, which will be my next, I'll do a quick next session on that. But for now, I think that should do it. I'll check this in under branch code Unity, so you should be able to get the starting branch and the ending branch. And that'll just about do it, I think. Yep, thank you very much.